Hi, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining from different regions, and a hearty thanks for all my panelists. We will dive right in as we have a power pack agenda. During the course of this event, we've heard how automation is becoming more of a tactical initiative than just a cost cutting measure. This is instilled in how the CXOs are powering the whole system of experience, that is SOX framework, as we call it, be it any back office process or to aid the decision making impacting any boardroom decision. Sameet, let's get started with you. So, what are your views on Zinnov's SOX framework and the whole thesis of agile configuration of workflows?
So, Dushan, we've been working in this space for quite some time, and I think we've been identifying with Zinnov for quite some time over the past couple of years in terms of how we were looking at the whole integrated framework and the workflows. And we sort of subscribe to the same vision of, the whole automation space is moving towards an integrated automation or a complete enterprise automation along with the kind this week. And the framework that Zinnov has put, the one which you have the conical one where you start moving from basic desktop automation to, the full-fledged integrated unified view of what's happening in the marketplace. I think that's what we absolutely stand for. I mean, that's why we started Evolute IQ as a company. And I think that's what we've been delivering to our customers as well. So I think the front to back, the end to end, and the complete unified position that Zinnov takes. I think that's what I think is going to be the future of it.
Great. Thanks, Sohit, for adding to it. Marilyn, if we talk about more of this, now enterprises talk a lot about providing like a great stakeholder experience, whether it is customers, employees, or its vendors. If you can share how you are measuring some of these KPIs and any initiatives where you are trying to improve such of the KPIs.
Yeah. So when we first started, we started out with a really simple model that we were trying to learn our technology, right, and support the business. But it was in really little things. So we were always asking people, how many hours is this going to save you? Right. And if people said, oh, it's 10 hours a month, at first we thought, wow, that's great. Well, that only lasted so long, right? As we learned how to use automation technology, our stakeholders were then not afraid to come to us with bigger issues. If you look at where we are today, right, it's only 2.5 years ago. But if you look at where we are today as a company, like most companies, so a lot of people on this call have supply chain issues today. That's a lot bigger of an issue than just trying to save someone so many hours a month, right? It could involve, a situation where maybe we created something or made a product that we put out there for someone to buy, and then it's not available now. Like maybe we put it out a year or two ago, and now we've switched it to a different product. The way that affects our whole automation pipeline and our chain as a customer, that's from the very beginning of the process all the way to the end, right? Because if we've promised someone to sell something and then they've purchased it, but it's no longer available, in the meantime, they could have billed someone for that. So you have all this stuff that you have to reverse out, right? You have all these needs that people have. We're trying to figure out what do people need in the marketplace. So I would say that all these things connect. I like what you just said about integration, right? Everything we do today has something to do with someone else and some piece of our pipeline and the work that we do every day. So all of these things connect. So when it comes back to your original question about stakeholder value, right, and what we're really providing and how we're measuring things today that are just so different. Like we're measuring, sure, time we give back to people, but we're also measuring how efficient are our systems. Are we tackling the right things? Are we prioritizing the right things? And where is this impacting our customer at the end of the day? And these are big issues to solve, which I'm sure we're going to talk about more on this call.
Yes, absolutely. I think, Marilyn, the supply chain example was spot on. And that's what we are seeing with most of our customers' engagement as well. And Jeff, just adding to that, I know from our engagement also with the wonderful company, your company is extremely employee centric. So, where do you see yourself in this whole journey of system of record, system of intelligence, and the transition to system of experience? And how are you aiding in this transition?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting observation because, we're seeing a lot of the similar trends that Marilyn just discussed. I really see the business role and the IT role overlapping more and more. So, like when we look at technologies like the intelligent document processing, where now any employee can identify the data that needs to be captured in a document, and then the ability to create their own RPA process on their own. That's really powerful. Another part of it would be, low code platforms. We're making it possible for employees to spin up a quick app, create a proof of concept, and then, center of excellence can prioritize and support it going forward. You also see data analytics that's getting used for forecasting, and the learning curve just continues to get easier and easier every year. So our automation program, we want our employees to feel empowered to experiment with the technology. And our program is also designed to train and support our people to really be innovators. Another thing that we're seeing at the wonderful company here is the automation team. We're getting more involved in the business by recommending processes and improvements where there's not always a technology solution to it. It could just be a small tweak to a process. And we just offer a nice, fresh perspective on things. So at the end of the day, opportunities are endless when we focus on upskilling our people, and our program really focuses on collaboration, and that fuels innovation. So that's where I really see our program going.
Yeah. So, thanks, Jeff, for sharing the whole thesis of the experience side of things. Vivek, adding to what we've heard from our other panelists, so what are your thoughts on the different views, how we are perceiving the whole system of experience in any automation journey?
Yeah, I think like any journey, right, there is always an evolution and always maturity that comes. And definitely, the system of experience is uh, is where we are, and more from an automation lens. Like I think Samit mentioned, and Marilyn and Jeff also echoed, right? Maybe it's 3 to 5 years back, automation was a tool for getting people out, getting FTE out. What is the saving? What is the dollar impact? Which was, which got it, I think, into the discussion, because obviously cost and efficiency is definitely something that businesses always want to uh, get attention from a CFO perspective. However, growth and experience is the other lever for any business to run, right? There's the efficiency cost, but then there is the experience cost. Like if we are not able to meet our customers where they are, most of the customers in most of the industries, the expectation has gone up many folds. More through with the pandemic, with the digital transformation and everything else. Like it's not a choice anymore that should we talk about experience. So we have to, for progressive businesses, in order to do the growth journey, have to essentially invest in automation tools and programs, which is directly yielding business growth as well. So it's no longer a cost efficiency tool. It will still be there that way, but this is a big enabler of growth through experience as well.
Yeah, I think that's truly said, Vivek. And like adding to what you and others on the panel has also shared, I think in addition to providing the whole great experience to any stakeholder, be it including your own people, that is the employees, I think CXOs are also thinking on how automation is impacting the whole planet side of things, also in terms of sustainability, while also improving their bottom line profitability. So, just wanted to get a sense of what do you think on how automation is driving both profitability and the people aspect of it?
Yeah. So the automation program, can kind of zero in on the people side of things because when it comes to the profit, that's a byproduct of automation. So it really starts with the people. So kind of taking a step back here, just to kind of give a little bit of context on the program here. Um, Ours started in 2020 and we stood up the RPA platform towards the end of 2020. We implemented about 40 automations and we gave 20,000 hours to the business. And we focused in the operations, finance, and accounting areas. So I joined the wonderful company about a year ago. And, my main objective was to scale the program. We proved out the technology. Now we're ready to go. So set up a governance structure. We streamlined our operations and how we determine the feasibility of an automation. We really looked at our development process, came up with some best practices, and that's just to name a few. Um, we also brought on a dedicated support team, and I think that's really essential to scaling a program. And we also doubled our development capacity. And we're also bringing on an AI document processing solution. And that's going to unlock tens of thousands of hours to our business. We're really excited about that. We continue to evaluate technologies, and our ultimate goal, anytime we're working with our stakeholders, is to provide an end-to-end capabilities to accelerate the productivity and reduce errors and streamline efficiencies. That's really what it all comes down to. And then, at the heart of our offering, help teams identify improvement opportunities, develop process, automations, and support, the ongoing functionality. So when you really focus on the people, that's where the value really unlocks, and sustainability and profit just as follows, after that.
Uh, that's a great view, I think, Jeff. And I think, Sumit, adding to what Jeff is also saying, I think every like you've been able to do a significant thing in terms of impacting the planet side of things, in terms of sustainability through the whole automation. So, would you be able to share some of your views on how automation is directly impacting sustainability?
Sure. So, Dushan, we always looked at automation end to end, right? That's how Evolute IQ was conceptualized, born. And I think that's one of the reasons we are scaling and growing. I mean, we spent the last 3 years, 3.5 years inception in, working with very successful customers rather than going out and marketing ourselves. And, as we stand today, probably are one of the only platforms that has everything from data extraction to RPA to the AI machine learning, all the things inbuilt, unified on a low code, no code platform. And the power is with the operations and the business IT teams to build stuff. I think this was wholly conceptualized to, reduce anything to do with, paper, anything to do with any kind of environmental hazardous footprint, right? So eliminate. We are headquartered out of Stockholm. So, the investor and the whole community drives us to look at sustainability, ESG in a very, very, focused manner. And we also have a segment dedicated to that. So one of our customers is one of the largest consulting companies in the sustainability and the clean space. And what we do for them is we have done a complete end-to-end automation of looking at all the companies. They provide reports to private equities or banks or investment firms to look at the ESG factor or the carbon footprint of any company that the bank or the private equity wants to invest in. And the technology that sort of goes, looks at millions of documents across the globe, extracts the data, processes it, does a lot of analytics, everything, and sort of creates the dashboard. That's the little contribution that Evolute IQ does, partnering with them, apart from obviously having built our own product, which sort of underwrites the whole theory of, automation with minimal carbon. Yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and we see that segment growing really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in many of our client conversations also, I think the whole sustainability comes into play. And with the whole, I think 2025 kind of initiative which Europe and also I think US has in the whole sustainability aspect of it, I think automation would play a huge role in it. And adding to what we've heard, Marilyn, so what are your thoughts on the impact of automation on these three Ps, namely profitability, planet, and people side of things?
Yeah, I think this is all exciting. I love what everyone's saying. We're talking about an end-to-end system. That little example I gave you, of creating a product that's no longer available, if you let that go, let's say there's no automation, and you manually take care of a process like that, we all know it will ruin your carbon footprint over time, right? There are large companies that resell our products and who sell your products. And if you don't manage that well using automation, tons of orders will go through. People will be charged for all kinds of stuff that's never going to deliver, right? Then you end up with a gazillion credit notes. We have one situation, and this is pretty common. In Germany, there are a lot of companies that still use paper today. So last year, I was posed with the problem of doing something to get rid of those paper documents. We couldn't at the time. This is funny because at the time, we couldn't convince our customers to stop sending paper documents. They were literally putting them in a truck and delivering them to our door, right? So someone would arrive to work in the morning. And actually, this is a funny people thing that I'll tell you at the end, but these documents would arrive in boxes at the front door. Someone would have to take those documents, scan them in a scanner, right? Then load the information into SAP, attach a picture of each document, right? And then God only knows what happened to those boxes of documents. I think they put them in binders or put them somewhere. This had a huge effect on a lot of people. During the process where we automated that process, our customer then, who we tried to convince for years, came back later and said, I think we can send these to you electronically. And we were really happy to a point. When we scanned them, our scans were really consistent, right? When they started scanning them, they had page breaks, pages that were crooked, all kinds of things. And you end up having to clean up all of these things along the way. But I have to say one thing, it makes everyone better when you do that, right? Because then you establish a process, you put boundaries around your process, and you agree on the steps forward. What was really cool, though, about this whole process is we used to have people who would miss work on the days those documents were delivered. So when they were sending the paper copies through the post or through a truck, it was really funny to look at those statistics because on those days, it was pretty typical that someone would call in sick, right? We don't have that happening anymore. The team's really happy. We've reached new agreements with our customers. And Vivek, I liked what you said before when you were talking about how things are changing, right? That was part of what I got from your message, that things are changing over time and we're trying to meet those changes. Sometimes we think when we're working in automation that we're the ones who are in the front of everything, right? We feel like we have the technology. That's something that's not happening anymore. There's new technology everywhere around us. All that stuff has to integrate and we have to stay ahead of it. What I found out on the people side also is that we can't keep up with it. There's so much change going around that we have to be really rigorous in our governance so that we're prioritizing the right things. We have to have very strong people to help us develop automations. We could not, when we first bought the document understanding platform from our RPA vendor, we didn't know how to use it, right? So we had to partner with a consulting firm who taught us how to stand it up, how to use it. We recently had something happen that was really cool with the document understanding platform for Germany and the credit memos that we were processing. A lot of them were going into the action center, right? So you set a confidence level and you decide if things match or don't match, then they'll be in a place called the action center where you can look on one side, you have the actual scanned document, and on the other side, you're mapping. We recently changed it by 0.004 and had almost double the number of documents fly through the process. And we were shocked that that small of a number helped us quite a lot and made people really happy. So all of these things, at the end of the day, I think all of these things are connected. As we're challenged with new things, our people are stepping up to the challenge. They're learning more, growing more. We're partnering more with the people who we partner with. Those partnerships are becoming very solid. Everyone's learning from it. And basically, we're all being given this opportunity to grow together in the automation space. And it's exciting. We're saving a couple 100,000 hours a year now using automation, but that's not even the number that we're tracking the most, right? We are tracking things like how happy are people in their jobs? Would they recommend our team to a friend or a colleague? Those kinds of things today. Yeah, so this is really exciting. I love what everyone's saying. This is great.
No, absolutely. I think, Marilyn, thanks a lot for sharing this. I think this is a great example in terms of how automation is actually moving beyond the back office to the boardroom, as an example. So really great. Thanks for sharing that. And Vivek, if you can add on more, how are you handling the 3 Ps in aspect to at Footlocker?
Yeah, so Footlocker, the journey for automation is about a year old. So it's not necessarily a very mature program yet, but there is a lot of excitement, executive sponsorship, and in terms of going after the use cases. So one use case I will share, which kind of touches a whole bunch of the Ps and other aspects. So Footlocker being more like a luxury footwear retailer, our SKUs change season to season. Like SKUs as the increasing code right? And it used to take us through uploading a SKU from a vendor, maybe it Nike, Adidas, or any of the other easy, whatever and you say, to get a SKU up to loaded, the time to market. Because until the SKU is not created in your backend systems, you cannot display it on your web portals or on the store racks or even on your mobile devices, right? That is the first step that any retailer has to do, create a SKU. So the time to market around creation of SKUs were in multiple weeks, basically. And there was good 3 to 4 dozen people manually keying the information, essentially. And and then there is a whole bunch of other team, like the buyers, who are working with the vendors to get the information in, right? So information is like the size of the shoes availability, or think about the design, or like the brochure, or the photo shoots, right? Everything like that. And it would come from all angles, like email, electronic notes. It will come from sometimes like paper brochures to you think about it. So a great use case to for a company who have never done automation before, but to introduce to automation. So what we were able to do is one big thing that I believe in is don't automate a bad process. So process re-engineering should lead automation, and more so on these kind of scenarios when we talked about end-to-end. End-to-end experiences can only happen if we make sure that the individual bits of processes that are touching it is streamlined first. So we did that, and we were able to cut down about a 20-step process down to only 8. Just not doing any technology enablement, just doing process work. And once we were able to do that, we were able to kind of take it forward and bring integration, automation, as well as some of our data analytics solutioning to be able to cut down the process to a few days instead of a few weeks. And the best part of it is on the people side, how it touched it. People who were trying to get data, trying to get information, and manually hand keying it, it's all kind of coming to them now through a central electronic database, and they are able to validate the information instead of kind of hand keying it. And the average handle time for SKU creation was cut down by 80%. So if you think about it, profitability, why it's a great story because we are able to put shoes, footwear in the shelves sooner. We are able to also kind of cut down the redundant manual work because people love to validate and go and talk to the buyer about what is the next seasonal thing that we should be focusing on rather than hand keying the data in. And then just the process wise, but it's a win-win for all because again, the upstream process owners did not knew what the downstreams were doing and vice versa. But now with an end-to-end experience, like everybody is excited about the opportunity that automation can bring. And again, so just a first use case that we are trying and getting excited about. Like now more and more leaders asking, like, can you do this for me? Or how can you help me in this process?
Vivek, you should be really proud of that as your first use case because that's a really huge one. That's a similar one to like a merger and acquisition, right? So we've acquired other companies and we have to bring all of their SKUs in, and then we have to go out to sites like Amazon, right? Walmart, Amazon, all these big, companies that are reselling things. You have to go in and make sure everything matches. And that's a huge effort. So you should be really proud of taking that one as your first automation. I can't even imagine what that would have been like if that's what we tried first.
So, Marilyn, I think to me, it's essentially we did not choose it. We were mandated to go and do it, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you should have just stayed with it, man.
Yeah. You should get a prize for that. I like what you also said about mapping your process, right? And not trying to automate a broken process. I think there's a time to automate broken processes, right? The ones that aren't going to be around very long, the ones that are going to disappear. Maybe you don't want to fix everything about that. But for an ongoing process like the one that you have, it's really important that you map out the as is in great detail and then figure out what's the best to be. Pretty often in automation, people will try to automate exact steps. And sometimes there's a better way to approach it. And you find that out only through mapping things out, right? And looking at things in great detail. So I was really happy you mentioned that as well.
Yeah, and the key was like we could have automated the 18-step process. That's it was being done for multi-years, right? But us to kind of reduce it 1/3 because we figured out over the years nobody asked, why am I doing this step, right? Or is there a better way of doing this work? So it takes time. It takes time, upfront time, because you are not going into development right away. So you have to kind of hold your horses saying that, okay, let's do it the right way. But it is definitely a better result at the end.
Oh, absolutely. I think I echo completely with that thought, Vivek. And I think traditionally also what we saw was that automation was always aligned to the whole return on investment kind of thesis. And what you, all of you as CXOs, I think are bringing to the table is more of an experience which is now paramount in all of your radars. So I think Vivek, I echo with whatever you were saying, and I think traditionally the whole narrative around automation was tied back to the return on investment side of things, and now with you guys into play and the whole experience which you are trying to bring in is more of paramount now on your radar as CXOs of the automations. So, Marilyn, if you can share some of the automations where you were able to neglect the negative ROI or the lesser ROI which you were able to receive, but focus more on providing the great experience for your stakeholders, be it employees or your vendors. So if you can share some of those examples for our viewers today.
Yeah. So recently, we had part of our business analytics group, approach us. And by the way, we have a pipeline that's well over a year and a half old, right? And we have several new priorities, right? As supply chain issues mount around the world, we have some priorities that keep creeping up. And so we can't always look at, what's the ROI? Like, is it big enough? Do I take the one with the biggest ROI, or do I take the thing that's next in line, right? We can't always look at those things. So most recently, we could have hired another company to do some work that would help with some dashboards that the business analytics group is producing, which are pretty high priority. And instead, we took the stance that we're here to support the business. At the end of the day, that's why we're all here. We want to help them, give them the best things that they can have to equip them so that people can free up their time to be focused on the right things. I love these examples that you're all sharing, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever we do has to be the right thing at the right time for our stakeholders. So we were approached saying, could you help us mine this information, right? And my team's not in the process mining business, but could you help us get all the data we need so we could build these dashboards? Our team could have hired an outside firm actually to do that. There are people that do that every day. However, we would have had to explain our entire business to them when we hired them, and that would have taken up other people's time. So we choose to go ahead and do it because we knew we could do it, right? So we ignored what it was going to do to the rest of our pipeline. We ignored what it was going to do to a lot of things so that we could quickly enable them to move forward with their project. That's one example of how we did that, where we didn't really care what the ROI is. We have a couple other things that are like that, where we just want people to have a really great user experience, right? We've had some instances where people wanted us to schedule jobs to run, or they wanted to send us emails to do certain things or trigger them for them. And instead, we created some buttons for them to push. So we'll make this really easy for you. And we sent them little user manuals that are on like little cards that say, hey, whenever you want to do this thing, just go here and hit this button. And it'll trigger things for them. It's the same as them sending us an email, but we don't have to wait for an email, right? Instead, we built queues that things could get queued up and could get launched. So we have a lot of examples like that where we're not looking, so much at, what's the ROI on this, but really, how is this going to help the business so that they don't have to even worry about this anymore? I think we're in a period around the world right now where people have a lot of worry. They're worried about these end-to-end integrations. They're worried about dropping things or information being stale or not having the right information or things not happening on time. And I think there's a lot of room with automation because bots are thousands of times faster than people, right? So there's a lot of room for automation to kind of jump in and help and take away a lot of these things that cause people to worry. Another really good example, I'll give you this one. I think we've talked about this one before, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up again. We had an instance where someone was keying in some manual things, right? So that vendors would get paid. And someone keyed in a vendor number versus the amount. And if you have vendor numbers in your organization that are over, that have numbers in the thousands and millions, you could actually send checks to people that would be in the millions of dollars. Now, you'll get your money back, hopefully, right? If that happens, if someone manually keys in something incorrectly, hopefully you'll get it back. You may not. But we didn't look at how much time is this going to save if we create this automation to catch these. Instead, we looked at what an irritating thing it is and how much is someone going to worry about their job if every time they key that in, they have to worry that they've made a mistake and that might impact their job in a negative way. That's one automation we created to catch things like that, to catch payment amounts. It's real easy with automations to set variances on things. So when you're thinking about how you can be creative and help the business in the future, if you're out there having these discussions about what automation has to offer, think about things like variances, right? Parameters that you set for things. It could be dates. It could be money. It can be amounts. It can be areas. You could set all kinds of variables that help you create automations that are helpful for other people. So at the end of the day, it's not all about how many hours have I saved, how many FTEs, how many dollars have I saved. It impacts kind of everyone's frame of thought, the way they look at their day, and the way you can eliminate worry.
So, Dushan, I'm going to step in. Marilyn, yes. I so vehemently agree with what you're saying. I think there are very few customers in the automation journey, and I've been in this industry focused on automation over a decade. And I think this is so perfect because I think where we are going, I think the penny is dropped on some of the mature users that you have to solve the problem, not part of the problem. Because just by doing desktop automation or part of extraction or part of this, you're just, just imagine if one tire was to go fast and the other three tires are going at slow. It doesn't work, right? You don't get to the place. In fact, you're creating more issues because now your car is either skidding or you're taking the wrong turn. And I think this is so spot on. I think the whole journey has now become about looking at the entire problem. So a full entire process, and then looking at the entire enterprise, because there are multiple such end-to-end processes at an organization level, which are still integrated with each other, because you may be doing supply chain for one business unit in your organization, but I'm sure that impacts customer satisfaction, collecting cash, all of those things, right? And so at an enterprise. And so the more and more we are, sort of speaking with our customers and sort of doing stuff, we see that the board has sort of mandated to look at it as an enterprise-wide thing. So instead of looking at 5-6 different technologies that are solving part of a problem, take a holistic view, take a step back, think about what is automation going to do for you as a part of your business rather than a project or a program, a fabric of your infrastructure.
Yeah.
I think that's what we are seeing. And that's sort of very exciting to hear the way you put it, because it's not just about ROI. I think most of the tech is failing because as you start putting disparate technologies together and invite consulting companies or integration companies to put it together, if you start looking at it across the process and across the enterprise, it becomes prohibitively expensive. I mean, it just becomes, it just doesn't add up. And while you know it is the right thing to do, it just becomes a battle with the CFO or whoever is signing on the checks. I say that it is. So, yeah, I think we are very excited because of this change of thinking that customers or enterprises like yourselves are looking, because it sort of sits very sweet with what we're trying to do. So thank you. That's awesome.
Well, and you can do it. That's the thing. I think when we first all started this journey, it was easy to think this is really big, right? This is too big. We can't look at it all. But we can do it today. We can map out our processes. We can see how they integrate. We can see where things are broken, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing that we have to be willing to do, and that's to be transparent. I think if we sit down with the business and people understand we're not here to get you. Like, we're not here to find some problem you have so that we can put it in a big light and you're in trouble. That's not why we're here. we're all here so that at the end of the day, we're all successful. So we're here to help. That's our number one message as a team. We're here to help. Jeff, I know you have that same message. You're there whenever I've talked to you and I've heard you speak, you really are there to partner with your stakeholders and to help them get back time, and dollars and, your all the bottom line things that you're measuring. You're really there to help. And I think when people realize that, we're here to help, then they are more willing to talk about things from end to end versus isolating things, right? It's easy to isolate things when you're in fear and you're afraid. And then it's easier when you're not to look at a whole system and to say, let's figure this out. And what's really great about automation, we use an agile process called Ready, Dev, Go. And what's really nice about our process is we don't have to boil the ocean in one day. We use sprint planning. So we work in 2-week sprints. We plan all of our sprints. We have a roadmap and we can stitch things together over time, right? It doesn't all have to happen in one day.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, exciting. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, Jeff, on similar lines, I think just taking the whole life cycle of the automation and stitching everything together and bringing everything to perspective with different technologies. I think in terms of talking about the afterlife also for any automation journey, I think most of the leaders are thinking only for the build part of the whole life cycle. And I think you were also alluding to it earlier on how any automation performs and the kind of support they get after we have put into the automation into production. I think it's equally important in part of the whole life cycle. So what are your thoughts on the whole gambit of things?
Good question. And I'm glad you mentioned production support because it really can be an afterthought. We believe production support is very instrumental in any automation program. And I think we've all been here where the vendors can set very, very high expectations, that their solution is going to work perfectly. We all know no technology is perfect. So when automations break, it has an adverse impact on the business operations. And that's a big deal. So to have an effective automation program, you have to have a team that can act, very quickly, but at the same time, prevent issues from happening in the first place. So, our support team, this is what we really try to drive here, is focusing on collaboration with our developers, the business analysts, our subject matter experts. And, we really try to understand how the automation is going to impact business. And really what I'm looking for in a support team is I want a team that operates with empathy. I think that's the most important trait of any team, because unless you can really feel the pain that our users are going through, that's where you're really going to see a huge impact. So, that's kind of the traits that we're looking at. And also from a production support perspective, we're also enabling them with technology. And one thing that we're going live with next week is an enterprise AI chatbot. So this is something that's going to quickly, help employees with their automation requests, as well as other IT requests, like hardware and software troubleshooting, some common IT things, getting a status on tickets. So it's that level 1 production support, giving them tools instead of eyes on glass, also frees up their time to be able to do more value added production support and building, better relationships with our business. So this is a game changer for production support. Highly recommend this. We're really proud of this. We have a very robust production support team.
Yeah, I think thanks for a lot for sharing this, Jeff. I think this is spot on in terms of also not only production support side of things, but also I think more of governance and change management aspect of it too, with your whole AI chatbot initiative. And Vivek, if we can have also some of your views on some of the best practices which you already would have implemented, maybe at Putlocker or in your past experience on the change management and governance side of things, because I think also these aspects form an integral part of any employee experience in terms of any impact which they have on automation. So would you like to share some of these?
I think one of the main pieces the top-down sponsorship for any program, like be it automation or any program that is going to have such a huge impact. Whenever we are talking of huge impact, we need to think about the change processes, the change leadership along with it. Should not be an afterthought. It should be a pre-thought before we start implementing any of this. One of the things that I have found in my experience is that you have to meet your customer where they are and take them on for the journey. And what I mean by that is in any organization, there will be naysayers. There will be people on the fence looking what is going on. And there will be one or two advocates, one or two promoters who are ready to kind of experiment and pilot things. So the key is essentially figure out who your to be promoters can be, and have and do one or two or use cases successfully implement, and let the word of mouth do your publicity than what you can do on your own, because there's nothing better that helps the fence, the people on the fence to get on board. And like for the nation, there will be always a few that you have to kind of just let them uh, let them be where they are. Like you cannot push a wall at some point. So it's not like one size fits all, but we should, as leaders, have multiple tools in our toolkit, multiple strategies to meet our customers where they are and take them on for the journey. So I think that is very very critical in a large enterprise to make sure that automation gets traction and uh, gets the foot basically, and then you are able to kind of scale the program from my perspective. And so that's where the change is critical, right? Like if you have operators, your customers talking about you and your change management and with you at the front and center on the journey, sharing that with their teams, there cannot be a better way of helping drive the change leadership in the organization.
Yeah.
Vivek, I call that the 20-60-20 rule. So you have 20% with you, 20 against you, and 60 on the fence. The real issue with that is that pretty often the 60 that are on the fence are quiet, right? So we give all of our attention to the 20 who are with us or against us. And I think we have to all be a little careful of that. And like you said, get your 20% who are with you to talk about it, because that'll pull that 60% with you, so hopefully you end up with 80 who are with you in the end. Versus if we give all of our attention to, the 20% who are against us, we lose our fence. They disappear because they're quiet, right? So they fade into the background. So I agree with you. It's really important to make sure that you're telling your story. Hopefully all of you have some kind of site set up in your company. Ours is called Automation Central. It's our informational site. So on it, we talk about our Ready Dev Go process, what it is, how to engage with us, which automations we've completed, what we're working on now, what we're working on next, right? What's going live next, what recently got approved in governance, where we are in our pipeline, our savings is there in a dashboard. There's all kinds of great information so people can understand who we are, what we're doing, how we're there to support the business. At the end of the day, if you get those people then who are really happy to speak, then you've batted the home run, right? And everybody's happy because they also like telling that good story. Life is made up of stories. That's how we're all stitched together, right? By telling our stories. And when you have a stakeholder who can tell that story of how they partnered with you and how it's helping them, it makes everybody happy. Everyone keeps carrying that story and they keep passing it along, right?
No, I totally agree to that. I know we are almost at the top of the hour, but just last thoughts. I think, Sumit, we've heard different views on the governance and the change management aspect of it from the enterprise leaders. So would you like to throw some light on how the automation platforms in the near future would drive some of these change management aspects?
Yeah, I think, all Jeff, Vivek, Marilyn, they're living the real stuff, right? I think there's a lot of theoretical stuff, a lot of vendors come with, and trust me, I'm very tempted to give you some, you know, uh, an answer which is, absolute pristine. But here's the thing, actually, Dushan, I think, we are all coming out of a hangover that RPA was the silver bullet that solved every problem. I think we are all past that. I think a lot of enterprises have come to the realization that RPA is a very basic tool that solves a part of the problem. The process has many, many things more than just doing desktop automation. There's extraction. There's so many different legacy systems in a real enterprise, like Vivek was saying, right? Things have been happening for many, many years. You can't just ignore those processes, ignore those technologies and just bring something new into it. You got to respect that the system has been built over the years. So when you start putting all of these things together and try to put a governance on top of that, you need to be respectful of what sort of drives the business, what is core to the business, and what is the new change that you want to bring in. And so it starts at, is automation a project, a program, or a way of conducting business moving forward? I think that is the first question that the CEO, the board of directors have to answer. Once you have established the fact that it's a way of conducting business moving forward, that's how we want to compete. I mean, all three of the panelists here have talked about how they are directly contributing to the top line, to employee satisfaction, to the profit, right? I mean, so it's what the board wants. So once you establish that, then the governance becomes all about, okay, these are the different stakeholders. Where do you want to give the power of decision making? Who is going to drive it? How collaborative do you want it to make? Where do you want to put the change process? Who is going to govern it? Is it going to be the business? Is it going to be the technology? Is business driving technology? Is technology driving business? Or in the real world, as Jeff said, right? It is a hybrid. Both have to work with each other. So the governance panel has to have both sides and all of that. What we are seeing, where we are processing 100 million documents and running the whole straight through processing, all these kind of things. Where we see the success is when you put the power in the hand of the operations team, because they are doing it and they live it every day. But there is a check and balance with the tech team, because you just don't want to have a wild, wild west where, you have cowboys shooting all over the. So I think if you ask me, to summarize, it will start. The first question I would ask anybody who's going through the automation journey is this a project, or do you see this as a way of life moving forward? If the answer is the latter, which is what it should be, then I think you need to get your core team into the room, which have to be all the different functions and departments. And you got to imbibe it, absorb it, create the right structures, check and balances, have the ability to invent, but respect what has been in the technology and, the legacy systems that have grown, because that's what has made you successful. So I think organizations and my customers who have seen that, I think we've been very successful with them because they look at it as a massive transformation, but an ongoing. So that would be my point. I don't know if you guys agree. That's what it was.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think all of us concur to that. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our discussion. So I think I hope our viewers were able to get some great insights from this discussion. And a huge thanks to all of my panelists for joining in today. Over to you, Nancy, now.